This week we're going to kick this week's episode off with a joke told by PWI Magazine. So I was checking the back of PWI Magazine looking for the index so that I could basically look at the power ranking that they had. PWI stands for Pro Wrestling Illustrated, for those of you unfamiliar. Or if you go on Twitter, they also have Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and they also have Pro Wrestling Insider, which is a website. But in this case, I'm not talking about that PWI, Pro Wrestling Insider. I'm talking about Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Not the Pro Wrestling spoiler alert website that you go to. Anyway, they had a joke in the back of the Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine this month, or rather it's dated for October of 2022, but we're not even in October, but I guess that's neither here nor there. While I was looking for the power rankings, as I stated before, which their power rankings, by the way, are, well, they're all over the place. We'll take a look at that next week, because, the magazine standing doesn't really it doesn't update, I feel like the magazine Pro Wrestling Illustrated comes out every 2 or 3 months, because there's no way that they have an issue ready every month, because I don't see it every month, Maybe I'm just left in the dark because the magazine vendor doesn't exactly, deliver. Back to the joke, though. The joke goes a little bit something like this. It shows John Cena, right? And then he's doing the whole "you can't see me" gimmick thing. And there's a kid, and he's pointing at the larger-than-life John Cena that he sees. And then he said, "Look, Dad, we did it," or something like that. And then he goes, "Look, Dad, John Cena can't see himself." So just imagine, right? You're John Cena. You wake up one day and you go to look in the mirror, and this is my interpretation of the joke. I'm guessing they're saying he's like a fucking vampire now. John Cena wakes up one morning and then he can't see himself in the mirror, Like, what? What the hell is this? Nonetheless, before we get into today's episode, there's a few things that I must address that are not written down. I haven't opened up my notebook just yet, and I haven't really... I've got an idea as to what today's episode is going to be. But the one thing that I need to address is the fact that if you go on to the Vince Russo's podcast, there's one thing that we agree on. But that's maybe the only thing that we agree on. Because a few years back, and I want to say that it was a few years back because obviously the episode's probably very, very old, but because in the episode that he did, he talked about the fact that, Kevin Owens coming from NXT, and yes, I know I'm not supposed to give him airtime, I'm not supposed to say his name, I'm not supposed to... The conventional wisdom is, if you ignore him, he'll go away. But here's the problem with that. It's a double-edged sword, because even though I'm ignoring him, there's millions of people out there who find it funny to, for whatever reason, taunt me because I'm not a fan. They want me to be a fan. They want me to be some sort of supporter. And it hurts their feelings that I am not a supporter. For some God forbid reason, whenever I go to post something that is a fact, a known fact, or maybe it's not as known as I thought that it was, but nonetheless, that's okay. That's okay. I'm going to address the elephant in the room about Kevin Owens and him bullying people. All because someone sent him a less than rectable tweet that he himself didn't exactly agree with. He himself doesn't really sit well with him. But Kevin, you've got to learn something. And you've got to learn it real quick. That if you were the number one wrestler in the world, like Jon Moxley, like Chris Statlander, of course, like I said last week, it's bullshit that she's ranked number 4, or that her and Serena Deeb share a spot, number 3, number 4, or number 5. No. On the cover of the magazine that I just talked about, as a matter of fact, and don't worry, we're going to get back around to that Kevin Owens comment. I'm not trying to elude that. On the cover of Pro Wrestling Illustrated's magazine, as a matter of fact, it shows Jade Cargill and Thunder Rosa, and they're looking at each other in the eyes. Both have their fists clamped, as though that they're about to throw hands. And then it's asking, like, you know how magazines will put a big article in, like, big words to, like, grab your attention? This one asks, who's the number one, or who's the most dominant female in AEW, or something of that nature. Kevin Owens, if you think that for whatever fucking reason that you're going to keep bullying fans, and by the way, that's a violation of your contract, because whenever you signed on the dotted line before the ink fucking dried, you stupid motherfucker, you should have read your own contract. You should have hired a lawyer, because I know that you got the money for a lawyer. Before anybody goes off the chain and says, "Oh my God, this is character defamation. You're making fun of Kevin Owens for not learning how to read." It's his fault for being illiterate. You should have read the fine print in your contract, Kevin Owens, that stated that bullying, harassing, and for that matter, cursing out your fans is a violation of your contract. Any violation, by the way, of your fucking contract, you stupid fucking bastard, can result in a fine or immediate firing. So Kevin Owens, the next time someone tweets to you and then they say something along the lines of, modern day heels aren't really as good as what they used to be, except, and then he says except MJF, and he tweeted it from your homepage. Matter of fact, you weren't even mentioned in the tweet. Come to think of it, it didn't say at Fight Owens Fight. You must have found it. Like, I'm going to post it on my Twitter, as a matter of fact, because it had MJF tagged in it. It didn't even have you, Kevin Owens, and the only thing that you said, bitch. And then you put a little period beside of it. Granted, he didn't say you, YOUBITCH. No, he didn't say that. He just said, bitch, which by definition is a female dog, but in taking precautions, you tweeted it to this person, therefore it can be assumed that you were calling them a bitch. And why would you do that? You wouldn't do that unless this, 1, triggered you, 2, it hurts your feelings, or 3, it's the truth and you know it. It pisses you off that you're not as good as someone like MJF. And going back to that magazine, in those power rankings that I mentioned, that are not updated, by the way, but, you know, it's... Would you looky here, looky here. They have like a column here. It says WWE Raw. Okay, so for Monday Night Raw, your champion is Roman Reigns from Pensacola, Florida. Your number one contender is Theory. This is why this is outdated. Theory would not be your number one contender. Okay, and Cody Rhodes wouldn't be either. He was hurt. Bobby Lashley, he could possibly be, but right now Bobby is the United States champion, or he's in contingency for the United States championship. So with Roman being the major champion, Bobby would only be in contingency for a lower tier card championship. Omos wouldn't fit the bill either. Due to various reasons that I can't think of right now, but really Omos doesn't get that much TV time. Finn Balor. Balor might fit the bill. Matter of fact, Veer Mahan, which Veer might fit the bill as well, even though he just made his debut, but that's number 6, and we're at WWE Raw. Hang on, I'm going to make my point right here. They also cover SmackDown. They cover AEW, who your champion at this time is CM Punk. I'm still not sure whether or not he is the champion or whether or not he's. These are outdated, but I'm using this to prove a point. Over here they have New Japan Wrestling, Impact Wrestling. They have most popular, but they've got this one little column. And it's most hated. Do you know who the most hated professional wrestler is today? According to this here Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine, number 1 is MJF. Michael Jacob Friedman is the number 1 most hated heel in professional wrestling today. And do you know why? It's because whenever people bring him stuff like this, they'll bring him a magazine and ask him to sign it, he'll throw it on the ground and say, "No, I'm not signing your fucking magazine. What are you, fucking stupid?" They'll wait in lines for hours, and then after that he'll roast you. He'll call you Harry Potter. He'll ask you why you're wearing those socks. What, do you go into a soccer game? He will lay into you. It takes a certain amount of charisma for a man to be, I'm going to put this in air quotes, most hated by certain individuals, but yet those same individuals will wait in line just for a chance to meet you, to get you to sign their autographs, or for that matter to get you to say, "Hey, how you doing today?" For that matter, if you tweet to him, most of the time he'll respond with a less than nasty comment to say to you. He'll never call you a bitch, of course, because that would be crossing a line. Once again, if you are a professional wrestling fan, you understand that staying in character outside of the ring is not necessarily a bad thing. As a matter of fact, it perpetuates the fact that you are seen almost like you're not breaking those barriers, those fourth wall barriers, what they call the forbidden door. You're not breaking that. Whenever you're seen as a TV host or an individual whose persona takes a new life off camera, doesn't matter whether you're acting like that person or not. But MJF takes it a step further. He acts like that person regardless of the fact that he doesn't have to. But he does it for you, the fans. He does it so that he can earn. Matter of fact, you know something that I just remembered this. Last year, MJF won an award. Pro Wrestling Illustrated, as a matter of fact, gave away rewards, if you'll remember. Last year, he won Best Heel Award. How many times has Kevin Owens won Best Heel Award? I rest my case. You know what? I don't even need to say anything else. I forgot about that. Oh my God. And if you Google it, you're sure to find it. Oh, did I just hurt somebody's feelings? I'm so sorry. I guess I should win the Best Heel Podcast Award. 'Cause damn, I'm breaking some barriers. Welcome, everyone. My name is Mocha, by the way, in case you didn't know. Let me try that intro again. Welcome, once again, to the Gut Wrench Podcast, everyone. My name is Mocha. Let's get this show on the road. Already 20 minutes in. I spent the first 16 minutes and 50 seconds talking about Kevin Owens. It's everybody's favorite golden boy, Kevin Owens. And even as Kevin Steen, he can't touch me on the microphone. So, that's basically saying even in his heyday, you know, I'm better than him. Not to take anything away from MJF, who always says that he's better than... Yeah, he always says that. He always says, I'm better than you, and you know it. MJF is such a smug prick. Doesn't he remind you of someone? Yeah. I take notes from him, you know? And that's alright. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you the 10/24/2005. I didn't write down what the name of the show is. Usually I do that. But I know that it's a Monday Night Raw, ladies and gentlemen. So, Monday Night Raw kicks off, and this is something very unusual. Very unusual. They don't show highlights. For those of you wondering, I did repeat very unusual. So, don't think that your podcast producer or whatever that you're listening on just malfunctioned. I said it twice. Shawn Michaels versus Big Show versus Kane. Now, this is something that's very unusual for WWE to do, is to kick off their show, one, without showing any highlights of what happened last week, two, with straight wrestling, like, hey, get out there, hurry up, alright, we're on a time crunch here. Yeah, you getting out there? Well, you better be getting out there. And then, the person gets it down into the ring, and they just start the wrestling match. No one came out during a commercial break, so I'm led to believe that no one here is going to be a jobber. And the reason that they do this, they want to drive it home too. They want you to know about it. They want you to realize it. That the reason that they're doing this is because all three of these men that you get to vote for, whoever, for whatever reason, commentary keeps saying, and I'm going to put this in air quotes, but I'll be paraphrasing more or less, whoever wins this match, you gotta feel like whoever wins this match is going to be the crowd favorite for, it's got to be the crowd favorite for being voted in to the, because these are your three options, right? Shawn Michaels, Big Show, and Kane. Those are your three options to vote on. At the time, they wanted you to feel like you had the power. It's almost like John Laurinaitis, 10 years, 12 years earlier, the people power, or whatever it was that he came out and he talked about all those years later. And if John Laurinaitis sounds familiar and you're just tuning into professional wrestling after a slumber of quite some time, it's because he was the brother, I do believe, of one of the Road Warriors. Or he was in some way, shape, or form involved in professional wrestling back in the 80s or the 90s. Or the 70s. Wherever. I'm unsure myself because, of course, I never really watched that, but I don't think that he's neither Animal nor Hawk, because they both had mohawks, and he's middle-aged and somehow has his hair back, unless he's using something like Rogaine foam. But how good does that shit actually work? Or hair plugs. I mean, he looks like a discount version of Val Venus. If I had to, put a label on John Laurinaitis, he would look like a discount version of Val Venus. Val Venus in his heyday, of course, but I guess I'm getting off subject here. But they're almost driving home the fact that whoever wins this match could be a crowd favorite. In case you didn't notice, I'm putting this in air quotes again. A crowd favorite to possibly win the votes for the Taboo Tuesday event. It's hard to talk about it because it's almost like they're saying, they're not intentionally, but not so intentionally saying that whoever wins this match is going to be the number one contender for the championship, facing off against both John Cena and Kurt Angle. Now, I didn't watch the main event. I'm just going to let you guys know. I didn't watch John Cena versus Kurt Angle. I meant to watch John Cena versus Kurt Angle. But life got in the way. So we're going to look at the last, everything but the last 20 minutes of Monday Night Raw. from this particular event. 10/24/2005. Matter of fact, I meant to watch it before I started this podcast. Before I started this broadcast, rather. Also, some more good news. I'll be switching directories soon. So, and I hate to do this, right now. I should have done it at the beginning after the Kevin Owens fucking rant. But, after the month of August, I will be switching directories. So, if you listen to me on Buzzsprout, I don't know how many of you do actually listen to me on my hosting, on my podcast hosting website. You will be able to catch me again on Anchor FM instead of Buzzsprout. Because Buzzsprout is... I'll just leave it at that. Because I don't want to talk bad about the podcast hosting website. There's a lot more perks if I go over to Anchor FM. Nonetheless, moving on. Jerry Lawler, so after that match, which I gave 3 out of 5 stars, it had its flaws too. So the referee was distracted, and then Kane picks up a chair and hits the referee, or hits the Big Show rather, in the face with that chair. And see, chair shots are legal in a triple threat contest. In a triple threat match, chair shots are completely legal, and there's nothing wrong with the brass knucks, the low blows, the eye pokes, the hair pulling. There's no 10 counts in the corner, the rope choking, anything that would be considered dastardly or heel-like that a bad guy would do. I don't mean to sound like Billie Eilish here, but anything that the bad guys would do, if they had a dead body and they flaunted it around like, oh, who wants to touch my dead body? If they had poison in their mouth and then they spit the poison out of their mouth and into the other person's face, the referee really doesn't have a leg to stand on, because at that point he's just going to have to, or they're just going to have to do their jobs as best as they can. I don't mean to assume the referee's gender, but had that been the case, the referee really can't do anything because that's out of their arm reach as a referee. They cannot, what are they going to do? Are they going to disqualify one person, and then what? That's not fair to the third person, the third party that's in that match. If Shawn Michaels, Kane, and the Big Show are all three in a match, and the Big Show decides to pull out some brass knucks and hit Kane square in the face, well, if it was a one-on-one match, Kane would win due to the Big Show being disqualified. The Big Show would lose. But where it's not a one-on-one match, it wouldn't be fair to Shawn Michaels. So this part didn't make any sense to me, the referee being knocked out before the chair shot, and they pointed out in commentary, well, the referee didn't see the chair shot, but you had to, there's no way that he didn't hear it, because there was a big thumping noise, just smack, it's like a firecracker going off. So if DQ was a factor, the ref would have been counting to 10 while Kane was on the outside. But unfortunately, 10 counts do not work in a no disqualification setting. So, I'm very fond of video games, and this week I took it upon myself to play a triple threat match on an emulated video game that I have on my laptop called WWF No Mercy, which I used to play as a child. And I tested my theory. I took a chair, I hit Kane with it, and whenever I did not get disqualified. Then I got in the ring and hit my second opponent, Chris Jericho. I hit Jericho with the steel chair, and I did not get disqualified. I threw the steel chair at Jericho, and I did not get disqualified. And then I shut the game off, because it's not that video games are a waste of time, but it's just that I don't have the time, okay, to play exhibition video games. Anyway, Jerry Lawler shows highlights from last week where Steve Austin embarrassed Coachman by pouring beer on him. Steve Austin comes over to the announce table, and then he pours a cold beer on Jonathan Coachman's in Jonathan Coachman's hat, almost saying, hey kid, does this hat hold 10 gallons? I think we're going to find out. And then he went ahead and he put the beer-soaked hat onto Jonathan Coachman's head, and you can see Coachman close his eyes as that cold beer just runs all up and down his spine. The whole time, Steve Austin is berating Jonathan Coachman, practically degrading him, looking over at Jerry the King Lawler, asking him, "It baffles me, King, it baffles me to see someone talk such trash from afar." And then he looks over at Jerry the King Lawler, and then he says, "But once you get up close to them, they got nothing to say to you." And then he said, "Strap in, kid. You're getting an ass kick in 2 weeks. Make funeral arrangements." That's basically what he's telling him. He's telling him that he's not coming out of it alive because his best friend's job is on the line. That's what happens if Steve Austin wins. Then King sort of rubs it in a little bit after giving us a little bit of a rundown as to what happened last week. But not only that, but he comes up and he says, "Okay, so you, the fans, get to vote. You've got 3 choices. Will Jonathan Coachman meet Stone Cold Steve Austin in a verbal debate?" A verbal debate. Now, this was just me, okay? I was sitting there watching this, and then I was like, a verbal debate? Are you serious? What are they going to do? Stand there and then just... Are you going to give them topics like, what's your thoughts on abortion? That wouldn't make for a lick of compelling television. It would be like putting Kevin Owens out there with a live microphone. What's he going to say? "I don't like the Gut Rich podcast. He makes fun of me." A verbal debate? Who wants to see Steve Austin in a verbal debate against Jonathan Coachman? The second choice was a little bit funnier, but at the same time it was like, keep in mind that before these choices were even announced, that they said that if Steve Austin can beat Jonathan Coachman in a wrestling match, that he would get JR's job back. So imagine, for a solid second, just a hypothetical scenario, that they were to have the second option instead of the third option, which is apparently the fan favorite because they popped so loud. So, like I said, just imagine for a minute because the exact words were, if Steve Austin can beat Jonathan Coachman in a, quote, wrestling match, that he would get his best friend's job back. The second option is an arm wrestling match. And the third option is a street fight. So obviously, for the third option, that's what people popped for. They were like, hell yeah, we want to see Jonathan Coachman get his ass kicked in a street fight. But then again, that brings up yet another topic of discussion, and that is, why is Stephanie McMahon so proud to see Jonathan Coachman go into a street fight with Steve Austin? Because it's very clearly going to be set up to be a street fight. There's no fucking way in hell that it's going to be an arm wrestling match, and it damn sure is not going to be a verbal debate. I mean, come on. How many times in professional wrestling history have we ever seen a verbal debate? Give me a second, I gotta get a drink of something. Okay. Had that been the case, these are your choices for Taboo Tuesday for Jonathan Coachman to face off against Stone Cold Steve Austin. And right as soon as King gets done talking, the King, Jerry the King Lawler, Stone Cold's music hits, and Jonathan Coachman's already in the ring, and then he says, "I'm calling you out, Steve Austin. I'm calling you out." And then Steve Austin's music hits, and you see this pickup truck coming up out of nowhere almost, and Jonathan Coachman looks like he's just seen a ghost. But it was a ruse the entire time, because according to Jonathan Coachman, according to who he keeps referring to himself as, quote, the coach, I don't get this. Why does every professional wrestler that's trying to be really, really good have to call themselves something in the third person? The Rock calls himself, The Rock says you can, like Steve Austin's, and that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold said so. You don't have to talk in the third person in order to be a professional wrestler. You can use pronouns like I, E, me, or not pronouns, hang on. Yeah, those are, I know I is a pronoun. You can use those types of, hey, it is I, Mocha from the Gut Wrench podcast, here to tell you all to have a great day. And if you don't want to have a great day, then that's great. That's wonderful. I'm here to tell you to follow me on Twitter at P1_Baby. And also to donate to my links. Some of them may or may not be in the description of this episode, but they will be in the description of other episodes. So don't be shy, drop in, give me $1, give me $2, you know what they're there for. But anyway, whenever Coachman makes it to the ring and then he starts calling out Steve Austin, Stephanie McMahon pulls up in Steve Austin's custom pickup truck. He goes ahead and she basically comes out with this beer, and she just pours it on herself, but she tries not to pour too much because she's not wearing a bra. In case you don't know what that means, it means anything that she gets on her, she doesn't want a nip slip, a little bit of beer getting the fabric wet on her t-shirt, wet t-shirt contests, how those work. Yeah, well, she's not wearing a bra, and it becomes abundantly apparent with the V-cut of her dress. And she starts walking around and jiggle, jiggle, jiggle. So you can tell that there's a little bit of sex appeal there. Good thing Jonathan Coachman's wearing sunglasses, because now his boss can't tell where he's looking. That's the way that I see it, at least. Had it been me, I'd wear sunglasses too, so that I could stare right at him. I'm sorry, am I a chauvinistic pig now? But, what I mean to say is that she gets in the ring, she says Stone Cold will not be here tonight, Mick Foley comes out, and Coach calls out Steve Austin next week. So not only did he call out Steve Austin this week, but he also called out Steve Austin the following week. It seems to me like they're trying to stall for something. Like, there's not enough time in the show for a wrestling match. So they're like, we need a segment. And this carries on for quite some time, too. Whenever Mick Foley comes out, Coach calls out Steve Austin next week. Mick Foley gets kicked in the dick by Stephanie. Then Carlito spits in his face. And then we get this match where whenever they showed it, they were like, coming up next, it's Triple H versus the big 500-pound love machine, Viscera. And in case you don't know Viscera's gimmick, he used to come out and woo the ladies. You know, in case you can't see it, my eyebrows are going up and down right now, sarcastically. So, this wouldn't make any sense. Honest to God, Triple H versus Viscera. Viscera, his build was at 485 pounds, and Triple H's was at 259 pounds. 260 some pounds. It was a no contest, because as soon as Triple H tried to make it to the ring, well, they came back from commercial break, right? And this is their idea of a commercial on Peacock. The screen fades to black, and then after that it comes back, and then after that they're like, well, welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. And then it's terrible, because so Triple H versus Viscera. Viscera's already in the ring, and then Triple H's theme song hits. Ric Flair ambushes him from behind, and sort of for a quick hot minute there, gets the better of him. And I don't know what the choices are for Triple H versus Viscera. I'm sorry, Triple H versus Ric Flair. But this was just a ruse so that you had the opportunity to pick between one of two matches that I could see. Because I'm sure that they say a third match, but they don't exactly announce it. So what they say is that your choices are a submissions match, a cage match, and they may or may not have said another match, but I didn't get the full story there. I am so sorry. Ric Flair gets out there, and then he grabs a microphone, and like I said last week, he's got these stitches in his head, and before he pulled the bandage off, and then he started screaming and saying obscenities, stuff like, you can't hurt me, you can't touch me, I was gunned down in an airplane and survived, and I was struck by lightning. And then he's pulling his bandage off, and the entire time that he's pulling his bandage off, and he's throwing his suit on the ground, which looks to be a very expensive suit, and he's elbow dropping his tuxedo and the blazer that he's got on, or whatever. That was last week, but this week he comes out, and I guess they told him not to fool with his bandages anymore, because he doesn't really touch it that much. Before he was bleeding like a stuffed pig, and now he's like, "You can't hurt me. My name is Ric Flair." And then he just goes woo a whole bunch of times, and then after that, he basically says, "Put me in a cage. Put me in a cage. Put me in a cage," like he's trying to start a chant, like, "Put him in a cage. Put him in a cage." He's basically saying that he wants a cage match with Triple H, which was one of the three choices, which was a cage match, a submissions match, and like I said, I didn't get the third choice. It was either my fault or commentary's fault, but it's not important at this point, because it's not my fault that Kevin Owens is on the TV. Yeah, let that sink in for a minute. It's not my fault that Kevin Owens is on the TV. I'm sorry, did I just hurt your feelings again? You Kevin Owens lovers? The people on Twitter who did the Bible says never mind, I'm not Christian. But if you are, then I guess those are your beliefs, and the Bible says you should turn the other cheek, right? Well, better get to turning. Only thing I'm going to turn is this page. The camera pans to an empty parking lot, but you had to know that something was coming. And whenever the camera pans to an empty parking lot, all you see is like the production truck and then like a whole bunch of like vehicles. None of them look very expensive, so I'm assuming that it's like the crowd's parking, not really like the superstars parking. But nonetheless, what you see next is you see this limo, big white limousine, and it's got Longhorns on it. And if you know anything about professional wrestling, you know that there's only one person in the fucking world who has a limo with Longhorns on it, and he's not from New York City, like they say. He's from Texas, and his name is JBL. John Bradshaw Layfield is at the arena, and then they say, "Well, what's JBL doing here? Find out next, after the break." And then it cuts to black, and then it comes back. And then after it comes back, JBL is confronted not only by Eric Bischoff, but also by multiple security guards. And Edge and Chris Masters is in the ring with Lita. You get some of the funniest bits here, I swear. Just JBL just telling off Eric Bischoff and his security guards. He's like, "You better have about 500 more of those security guards." And then Eric Bischoff's like, "You better believe that I got 500 more security guards." The security guards, by the way, aren't trying to separate the two of them. They're just standing around, just looking at each other like, "Hey, what are you doing? What's up, buddy?" Just security guarding around. Just securing the perimeter. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. No one cares about JBL. Okay, so Edge says something that's pretty contradictory. He says, "No one cares about JBL. That's why I speared Rey Mysterio and not you." So last week on SmackDown, Edge went ahead and speared Rey Mysterio in a match with JBL versus Rey Mysterio. It's kind of like the whole catch-22 where I keep saying no one cares about Kevin Owens, but yet he keeps popping up, No pun intended, pop-up powerbomb. That's why I speared Rey Mysterio and not you. And here's my question to Edge. If no one cares, Edge, why do you care enough to show up to SmackDown? And then care enough to rub it in JBL's face? But here are your choices for Edge's opponents. for the Taboo Tuesday. Edge and I'm assuming it's whoever gets the second most votes is also going to, like, they make it sound like it's a tag team. You know, it's going to be a tag team match, but at the same time, they tell you almost retrospectively that you only get one vote. So, how is it a tag team match? But here are your choices: Christian, Rey Mysterio, Matt Hardy, Bob Holly, or JBL. And it's obviously setting up for JBL versus Edge at the Taboo Tuesday event. JBL calls Chris Masters a hair-lipped orangutan. He talks like he's chewing marbles. And he calls Lita, for some reason he says, that used merchandise you call a girlfriend. JBL, you just fell for the oldest trick in the book. And Rey Mysterio ambushes Edge and Lita from behind, and he hits Lita with the 619. And JBL says, "Nice try, buddy, but you just fell for the oldest trick in the book." And then after that, Rey Mysterio comes out, and then he hits Edge with a basement drop kick from behind. And while Edge is outside the ring, Lita tries to hit Rey Mysterio with a briefcase that she had in her hand, the Money in the Bank briefcase that Edge owns, thanks to the fact that he won a ladder match earlier on in the year. Anyway, whenever she goes to hit him with the briefcase, he does the basic maneuver known as a drop toe hold to her, and then hits her with his finishing move, the 619. Mickie James versus Victoria. The ref is distracted, not seeing the pin. Okay, so the referee gets more than distracted here. It's basically like a squash match that just happens within like the women never get too much TV time. It's mostly just always like, hey, we've got a whole women's division here, but we're only going to have one women's match this week. Okay, that's fair, I guess. How's the rest of them supposed to, like, feed their families, you know? Why do they have a whole women's division if they only need two women to fight every week? You know, like, it's not very compelling storytelling. And I understand that it's a male-dominated sport, that the guys get 95% of the TV time, and it actually took until like 2018 before they actually got, or 2019 before they actually got like a WrestleMania main event where there were actually 3 women. And I've talked about women's wrestling before, and actually Shimmer Wrestling follows me on Twitter. By the way, I went from 37 followers to 300 followers. Black magic? Or is it just talent? Something that Kevin Owens doesn't have. Oh, yeah, he doesn't have black magic either, by the way. For those of you wondering. I bet he couldn't even figure that out if I printed off instructions for him. But anyway, enough of Kevin Owens and petty squirrels. Mickie James faced off against Victoria, where the ref was distracted by Tori Wilson not seeing the pin, otherwise known as a small package. Some of you may or may not know it as a cradle. Mickie pins Victoria. Candice Michelle rolls Victoria's shoulders. Then Trish rolls Mickey's shoulders to the top. So for those of you who don't know how exactly a small package works, imagine me and you are looking at each other, and then I get you in a collar and elbow tie up, and then from there I hook the back of your neck, and then I hook the inside of your leg, let's say your left leg, and then I use my momentum to roll forward, and while rolling forward, your shoulders are on the ground. That's a small package. In order to do that, however, I would have to weigh about 109 pounds, and you would have to weigh around the same 109 pounds, or 140 maybe, somewhere around there, because usually heavyweights don't do it. So that's why the women can do it, but the men really can't. I mean, the men can, but increasing complications whenever a heavyweight tries to do it to another heavyweight. But anyway, Mickie James wins her debut match thanks to some interference by Trish Stratus, because, as I said, Victoria originally... Let me look at that again. The pin, the small package cradle. Mickie pins Victoria, so Mickie originally had it. And while the referee was distracted with, I think, Tori Wilson, for some reason they were arguing, and I don't know why. Candice Michelle comes in. She must have missed her cue right away, and it was a delayed response. But Candice Michelle comes in, and whenever she does, she tries to roll Victoria's shoulder so that Mickie's shoulders are on the ground, so that whenever the referee turns back around, whenever he decides to, he'll see that Victoria is the one pinning and not being pinned. And then Trish Stratus takes the opportunity to roll into the ring, or slide into the ring rather, and whenever she does, she rolls her teammate, her friend, Mickie James, over on top, so that Victoria is the woman on the bottom having her shoulders pinned to the mat. Anyway, if you've watched any sort of collegiate wrestling, you know that a cradle counts as much as a headlock as far as getting a point goes. You would get a 1, 2, a 3. Ding, ding, ding. And Mickie James is your winner in her debut match. Sorry for the long-winded explanation. I really am. Okay, so Vince McMahon comes to the ring with what is presumably what they say is a major announcement. It's not a major announcement. It's more poking fun at Jim Ross for whatever reason. No wonder he sued them. I would like to think that some of this was done in fun humor, but at one point or another, maybe it got taken a little bit too far. But the whole time during the segment, they're saying that JR is full of crap. Do you get it? He's full of crap. Because the WWE was there during Triple H's leg surgery. The WWE was there during Steve Austin's neck surgery. So they found it fitting that the WWE be there during Jim Ross's colonoscopy and Jim Ross's colon surgery. So, I'm going to try my best to get through this. Some of it, maybe at the time, was funny, but some of it is a little bit like one of those things wherever you're watching something and you want it to be funny, you want it to be somewhat hilarity, but it's no Key and Peele segments. There's no like funny laughter. Vince McMahon is dressed as a doctor, and there's another doctor, and there's a nurse, and her name is Nurse like Slobberjaw or something like that. And she's obviously wearing a low-cut top so that you can see everything that you need to see. Because why wouldn't she be wearing a low-cut top? Anyway, they got one of those mold, almost like plaster asses. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, they sell sex toys online, or so I'm told, of like a woman's lower region. And I'm not really sure if they sell it of a man's lower region. Well, if now that I think about it, yeah, they do, but not like in the model of a man's ass, a man's butt, So it's basically what it looks like is that they've got like this silhouette laying down, almost like they stuffed a bunch of feathers and then put a blanket over it, or a whole bunch of pillows. And then after that, they decided that it was a great idea to put the sex toy ass, the woman's lower assets region, put it like right on the gurney as well. And for whatever reason, the following scene that you see is Vince McMahon pulling things out of this plastic ass. And the first thing that he pulls out, actually I didn't write it down in any order, but we have barbecue sauce. Next thing that he pulls out, or the next thing that I wrote down, was an owl, Mae Young's other hand. So back in the 90s, they did this segment with Mark Henry, who was portraying someone known as Sexual Chocolate. I promise this won't take too long. Mark Henry, the world's strongest man, who proved that he was, in fact, the world's strongest man whenever he did an extraordinary feat in the 1997-1998 Olympics. I'm not really sure what that feat was, per se, but he holds multiple lifting benchmarks and multiple world records. And in 2010, he even pulled 2 Mack trucks with his entire body frame. So if he's not the world's strongest man, I would hate to see what a step up from Mark Henry is. But anyway, in the 90s, he got with this woman named Mae Young, who at the time was around 82, 83, or 85 years old, and who was apparently a wrestling legend. And Mae Young, in her own right, is very entertaining, unlike Kevin Owens. But they did this segment where Mae Young was on an operating table with her legs wide open, and where Mark Henry and Mae Young had intercourse, they had to get a baby out of Mae Young. And in order to do that, they needed a doctor there, and the doctor at the time was presumably a real doctor, even though it probably wasn't a real doctor. It wasn't Vince McMahon, is my point. And the doctor in question said, "Oh, that's a hand," and it showed like a plastic hand being pulled out of her vagina. Or not being pulled out. I mean, it didn't show her. The camera angle was like behind her. So, they could have just had props setting under a table and then pulling them out one by one. But my point is that it's presumably something of that nature. Anyway, whenever he pulls it out, he says, "Look, it's Mae Young's other hand." He pulls out a goldfish who... He doesn't pull out a goldfish per se. Like, I would imagine that all of you are imagining like a flopping fish or an atomic fish or anatomic fish. No. Like a mechanical goldfish. No. He pulls out literally a goldfish in a bag full of water. And then he says, "JR, what's that doing up there?" He pulls out a football helmet from the University of Oklahoma. The Sooners. He pulls out a Stone Cold bobblehead. And he says he needs the Jaws of Life. And afterwards, after he gets the Jaws of Life, he pulls out a mold plaster, or almost like what they make out of piñatas, like, the paper and stuff, paper mache almost. He pulls out a mold plaster of JR's head. Basically, the metaphor says that JR's own head was up his ass. Do you get it? Because he's full of shit. But they didn't say shit. They said crap. Like the entire time, all night, they'd been saying, JR is full of crap. JR is full of crap. Oh, guess what? JR is full of crap. And I understand why they're saying that. Do you get it? Because it's a colonoscopy. He's full of crap. There's a double entendre there. Like, I wanted to laugh. I really did, but at the same time, I was kind of like, I don't know if we should be making jokes about a man who's considered the world's best wrestling announcer, maybe. And like I said, I apologize I didn't look at the main event. It's probably why I had to pad so much time into this, making fun of Kevin Owens and everything. And probably why I had to, pad so much time talking about irrelevant crap like Mae Young's hand and all that. But the bottom line is Kevin Owens has never been consistent with his promos. The bottom line is Kevin Owens never has been someone to look to. Like, you can't honestly look me in the eyes. You can't honestly look me in the eyes and tell me that Kevin Owens is a bright future star for the WWE or for wrestling in a whole. Kevin Owens is a turd on the stain of professional wrestling, and he deserves to be fired. Not only for the things that he does to the fans. This is the third time that I have seen either a tweet, a video, or something of that nature that's been posted on social media that has been rather obviously directed toward a fan, someone who upset him, someone who... If you see something that you do not like and it pisses you off, and you say something about it, unless you have just cause to do so, keep your mouth shut, or keep your nose out of other people's business. That tweet wasn't even sent to you, Kevin Owens. Now that I look at it, it was sent to MJF. It wasn't even hashtagged Kevin Owens. It had nothing to do with you, but it made you mad because it is the truth. And that sometimes the truth hurts. I can tell that you're mad about it. Do you know why? It's very simple. That's a very simple answer. And also your fans too. Your fans, oh my God, they got so mad whenever I called you out about it. And they were like, you can't make fun of him like that. That's not cool, man. Oh yeah, and apparently I don't know the difference between a fact and an opinion, because I said that the fact that Kevin Owens is a mediocre turd in a professional wrestling wing, and then they said, wait a minute, that's not a fact, he's not a turd, and then they went on to tell me their irrelevant opinions. I, for one, think it's great that we live in a world that Kevin Owens can be expressed as not only a turd, but also a really good professional wrestler. Why are you laughing? And it doesn't hurt my feelings that people think differently than I do. But see, I can't express my feelings over Twitter, because if I do that, I'm going to get my account banned. Getting my account banned really wouldn't garner me any sponsors, really wouldn't garner me any followers, and for that matter, it really wouldn't garner me any publicity whatsoever. Anything controversial that I do on Twitter might get me banned. So for that matter, I found a new way to cope. And do you know what that is? From now on, and I've been doing it for almost 2 weeks now, I'm not going to allow petty squirrels like that to get under my skin. And instead, I'm going to bite my tongue so that I can talk about it on my platform that I will soon be broadcasting from every Saturday. Well, I mean, I already broadcast from it every Saturday, but my point is, like, let's say that they send me the tweet on Sunday. I'll just like the tweet, maybe take a look at it, remember it, write it down, and then be like, okay, I can talk about that. Whatever, fuckface here just said, I can talk about that. And the fact is that no matter how hard they try, they can't ban me. At least not here. I'm almost certain that, just don't listen. You don't like me, don't listen to me. The fact is, you guys have trouble handling the truth. My name's Ben Mocha. Like I said, Kevin Owens isn't consistent, right? You remember early in my career, in my podcast career, where I used to say, that's a wrap, and then end the episodes? Well, to show you what consistency is, that's how I'm going to start ending my episodes from now on. Thank you all so much for listening. I've been Mocha. You're not Mocha. You should be jealous about that. That's a wrap.